Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Ellen here with a new video for you. Welcome to the second part of What If Deku Had the Rinnegan. Welcome back to Season 2. I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. So, we begin. A sports festival? It was kind of weird, but for a moment, all the tensions the USJ had created were forgotten by the classroom as a whole. At times, it was easy to forget UA was, well, also a high school with everything that entailed. From his spot, Izuku pondered over the situation, a frown on his face. But isn't this a bit too close to the USJ attack? He wondered out loud, a bit meekly. Won't this make us a target? Some of his classmates turned their eyes towards him. If they agreed or disagreed with him, Izuku couldn't tell. As he once again became the center of attention, the same thick air of mistrust became clear to him, almost suffocating. But Aizawa, as usual, demanded attention. On the contrary, he spoke firmly, by following the original plan, we prove to those villains that we have everything under control. We show the world that we weren't even brought down by the attack. Understand? He exchanged a look with Uraraka and Ida. Though it made sense from the school's perspective, Izuku couldn't help but feel as if it was a bit of a risk. He himself didn't exactly feel ready to jump back into action to begin with anyway. He still felt like his muscles had been injected with lead, and his eyes still felt oddly spent, though he'd not tried to push them in any major way. But it was out of their hands now anyway. Thinking back on it, maybe it should have been clear this would happen. UA's Sports Festival was one of the biggest events in Japan, with millions of people watching from all over the world. Canceling it would be a major blow to the school, and possibly a major boost to the villain's reputation, which in turn could cause copycats to pop up and their influence to gain traction. But were they ready to take on such a challenge? Looking around the classroom, Izuku couldn't say. Furthermore, Yayorozu Momo added from her spot, drawing his attention, the sports festival is where pro heroes scout for students to take in. This is our best chance to get scouted by good pros and continue to evolve as heroes. Some murmuring could be heard. The idea of being scouted by their idols was clearly one people were interested in. Izuku himself could certainly relate, imagining a dream scenario in which All Might personally taught him. Of course, such a thing could never happen anyway. All Might was far too busy to take on a pupil. With tensions running high, 1A looked on as Aizawa put his hands on his desk, leaning forward. His eyes, though just as tired as always, carried an odd intensity as he spoke. Yes, just as she said, if you truly wish to flourish as heroes, this will be one of 3 chances you'll get to evolve beyond anything else. Take it seriously and you'll prosper. This is a chance you can't afford to overlook. And then, after a pause, that will be all. Midoriya, I need to speak with you for a second. The murmuring ceased, replaced by everyone turning to stare at him. Izuku decidedly ignored the pressure he felt, pushing himself off of his seat and following Aizawa out of the classroom. Just as he left, though, his eyes met with Bakugo's from across the classroom, and what he saw was an odd form of hatred unlike the one he'd grown used to. It sent shivers down his spine. Izuku closed the door behind him. In the end, he was taken to the headmaster's office, where Present Mike, All Might, a strange man in a trench coat, and the headmaster himself all waited for him. Izuku had never actually seen Nezu in person from this close. The small rodent, dog, whatever, the headmaster, looked unusually grim, though his eyes still carried some mirth. There was an empty chair next to where the headmaster sat. As soon as he entered the office, Izuku obviously froze, but Nezu flashed him a smile. Ah, just who we were waiting for. Take a seat, Midoriya. It wasn't like he could say no to the headmaster anyway. After swallowing what felt like a sea of anxiety, Izuku walked to the seat he was offered while trying to look as if he wasn't there, and sat down, with Eraserhead closing the door behind him. The green-haired youth gulped, but said nothing as everyone's eyes turned towards him. Present Mike grinned at him, clearly trying to make him feel a bit better. Hey there, little listener! Hi? He tried, then immediately hated himself for speaking up. Izuku really didn't like how this was going. Can I help you? Yes, sorry, we were all thinking. Before anything else, though, Midoriya, you, of course, are familiar with All Might, Present Mike, and Eraserhead. The man in the nice trench coat over there is Detective Tsukauchi, who we all trust very much. You can rest easy, you're not in trouble. We were just hoping you would clear some things up for us. A detective? Oh, wow. Izuku swallowed dryly, trying his best not to vibrate out of this entire dimension out of sheer anxiety alone. The detective, a nice-looking man with an average face and dark hair, tried his best to look friendly by flashing him a smile, but it just made Izuku want to disappear even more. 2 concentric eyes blinked a few times, and he took in a deep breath. He was falling back into old habits. He wasn't in trouble. He wasn't powerless. I don't need to be afraid, he told himself. All right, he murmured. How can I help? Detective Tsukauchi stepped forward. We've already read your reports, but we were wondering if you minded describing your experience within the USJ to us again. Izuku blinked slowly, but eventually did. For the next half an hour, he went through the events of the day as he remembered them, making it clear when his memories were fuzzy due to pain or adrenaline. He described the creature and his fight with it in great detail, as well as his short meeting with the villain's leaders. Finally, he told them of his desperate measures. They all looked grim at the ending. I see, Tsukauchi finally said. Well, I don't think you need to worry about that. From what we can tell, the being you fought with was not exactly human. Of course, had we managed to recover it, I could ascertain you with more than that, but the portal-creating villain took his fallen comrade with him when they retreated. A pause. Your reports line up with what was said, but... He trailed off, exchanging a few significant looks with Nezu and All Might. So what you're saying is that your quirk managed to kill the creature? Just by touching it? After a pause, Izuku took in a shaky breath. I think so. I wasn't really thinking clearly, and my quirk is a bit weird. It certainly seems that way, Nezu cheerfully agreed. Many abilities have been listed under your name by your teachers, some of them looking completely unrelated. Your quirk, this Rinnegan, was it? I've never seen anything quite like it. But then he grew serious. I shall be frank with you, Midoriya. What I see, and what everyone here sees, is a brave young man who put himself in harm's way to protect his classmates and teacher, and who resorted to desperate measures in order to keep himself from death. But a quirk that can kill someone with a mere touch, even if a prolonged one, that's almost unheard of, and it is very, very dangerous. He looked down. A hero shouldn't kill. Izuku knew that. However, he'd not seen any options in front of him back then. He was nearing death, injured and broken, and knew that, should he fall, his friends would be slain soon after. There hadn't been any better options. He knew that. But the shame still remained. I know, he agreed. It scares me too sometimes, and I know a hero shouldn't kill, but... Aizawa cut him off, however. We're not criticizing you for that. I know I can be harsh on you, but you are not a hero yet. What happened at the USJ should never have happened. You were not trained for that sort of situation. What you did to protect your life and that of your classmates when a second could and would have killed you instantly was exactly the reaction you were supposed to have. But it brings up a question. What happens if you lose control? I won't, he responded instantly and knew it to be true. The Rinnegan never activates itself. But what if it does? Aizawa pushed. What if it evolves suddenly, or you panic while in a hard fight? What if it does and you're holding a teammate? A friend? No one's saying you're a danger or anything, Present Mike cut in, again trying to settle him, sounding earnest. Quirks are a part of the body, after all. It's not unheard of for them to jumpstart an evolution when you're in danger, like adrenaline. But it's good to be safe, right? So we were thinking that maybe some extra exercises on control would help. He wanted to insist it wouldn't be an issue at all, but tried to imagine it instead. A practice fight, him versus Uraraka. He reaches out to grapple his friend, holds onto her by the hand as she touches his forearms and activates her quirk. He feels weightless, restless. The Rinnegan flares. He holds tighter. She's gone in an instant, limp. Her eyes are missing their life. He blinked back to reality. Suddenly, Izuku felt like puking. He rose to his feet unsteadily. Understood. I'll accept whatever extra training you think I'll need. He took in a shaky breath, trying to banish the image from his head. Am I excused? Finally, All Might spoke up. Not quite, young Midoriya. He looked around awkwardly. What happened last time was a regrettable accident. But I know, just by seeing you, that you would never have taken a life if the situation wasn't so dire. That was on us. On me. But now the sports festival is coming, and I expect you to be much more mature out there. The man gave him one of his classic smiles, rising from his feet to tower above Izuku. Facing his childhood hero from this close, Izuku could almost fool himself into believing everything would be okay. But only almost. Remember, young Midoriya, plus ultra! That means you can never settle and never stop improving. I will be watching you very, very closely in this sports festival. Izuku just took the man's words at face value. But, judging by the way Tsukauchi and Nezu snapped their heads to stare at him in shock, there was something there he didn't catch. Nodding once, he turned and left. This video is sponsored by Adobe. Adobe is redefining the digital experience through game-changing innovations that shape the next generation of storytelling. Adobe makes it easy to create, edit, and share digital documents securely, allowing you to collaborate and communicate across devices. Adobe Photoshop is your go-to application for faster graphics editing and digital art as a whole. At We the Celestials, all our thumbnails across every channel are created with Adobe Photoshop. Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based and non-linear video editing software application that is versatile and easy for beginning and master editors. Finally, Adobe After Effects is the industry standard tool for digital visual effects, motion graphics, and compositing applications used in post-production. Many of our voice actors, audio editors, and video editors use Premiere Pro and After Effects to produce these high-quality videos. In fact, I'm using Adobe Audition right now to record this audio. Click the link in the description to start creating now, and thank you to Adobe for sponsoring this video. 2 weeks. That's how long they had to train for the sports festival. 2 weeks. Once every other day, after classes, Izuku was assigned control exercises under the supervision of a racerhead and recovery girl, where he was to report every time his quirk activated as he exerted himself. Izuku decided to go above and beyond at these exercises. He wanted to make the most of them, improve in more ways than just one. On the days where he had no such exercises, he, Uraraka, and Ida had agreed to practice together after classes, an activity Present Mike had more than sponsored, thankfully. Apparently, while he'd been gone, some people from Class B had all but barged into their classroom and declared war on 1A. Also, apparently, Uraraka had a secret manic side that came up whenever she was in a competition. Just a mention of the sports festival made her entire personality shift into something that reminded him of Bakugo, if Bakugo hadn't also been a jerk. It was kind of funny, honestly, but he wasn't about to say that. When she got into her funk, Uraraka was a bit intimidating. Ida was just as determined, wanting to impress his brother from home. And, though neither of them said as much, Izuku had the slight impression both of his friends wanted to keep up with him, to surpass him. To never feel useless again, maybe. Izuku could certainly relate. So they trained. Sparred was more like it. Keeping their combat quirk use to a minimum and not risk injuring each other, the trio worked on techniques and fought each other to feel better about their skills. Izuku quickly came to appreciate how quick Uraraka was on her feet, and how hard Ida could kick when he committed, engine legs or otherwise. Those hurt. But he wasn't a slouch himself either. The Rinnegan gave him perfect vision, and his reflexes were already amazing. The more they sparred, the more he found himself falling into a bit of a combat rhythm. Dodge, weave, duck, counter. It became easier to react to blazing fast strikes, easier to predict moves he'd never usually see coming. Overall, he felt as if he improved a lot, as if they improved a lot. On the last day before the tournament, the three met up in their usual spot, and decided to do nothing. They needed to rest. So instead, they took seats and bought themselves some drinks and just watched the sky in comfortable silence. It felt nice, having friends that loyal. Whatever pain he went through for the rest of his life would be worth it for just that, if nothing else. You know, Uraraka said after a while, it's really weird to me that we're just, doing a sports festival after almost dying. It's kind of surreal. As the two looked at her, the girl continued. I had to call my parents and all. They were super worried. And even they got whiplash when I told them about it. Hero school is really intense, they said. And of course it is. We're training to save lives, but I don't know. From her right, Ida shook his head, nodding slowly. The bespectacled boy took a moment to think on his words, then spoke. I think I understand what you mean. It is remarkably overwhelming to deal with this so soon after the USJ. I understand their reasoning and am eager to show my improvement, but still, I have been thinking. If the villains from the USJ were the ones Midoriya pointed out after the reporters broke into UA, they've proven that they can even invade school grounds. To go forward with such a big event in such a short time period is quite a bold move. However, I have full faith in UA. Izuku took some moments to think about it. I mean, so do I, but... But? Well, we did catch a hint of their presence last time, right? It doesn't cost us anything to keep an eye out. That way we can keep each other safe. Ida nodded, as intense as ever. Of course, he exclaimed. Nothing says we should not look out for any hints. A good hero will always be on the lookout for trouble. Yeah, Uraraka agreed from her spot, an eager grin on her face. Plus, this way we can stop them from ruining my shot at kicking everyone's butts in this tournament. The green-haired boy felt his face grow red, but laughed nonetheless. Even after everything, he had full faith in one thing. If he had his friends by his side, he could get through anything at all. Finally, the day arrived. The entirety of 1A waited anxiously within the waiting room, though they had separated into a few groups as soon as they'd walked in. That was something Izuku had noticed almost immediately after the USJ incident. Students had begun to stick with students that shared in their experiences, their thoughts. No one really seemed to hate him, thankfully, but a few people, Sero, Ojiro, Mineta, a few others, seemed genuinely scared of him, like he was something of a loose cannon. Others, like Kirishima and Yaoyorozu, looked at him in a strange, pitying way. It felt horrible, honestly. Izuku tried to ignore it. As he and Uraraka discussed strategies and tried to keep their head in the game, Ida barked and shouted instructions at everyone to follow, then things like, "Are your preparations complete, everyone?" in that classic Ida way of shouting. He heard his heart roaring in his ears and his eyes screaming with untapped power, ready to be pulled on. His instincts felt like they were on overdrive, like a raindrop would set him off. Still, he stuck with Ida and Uraraka. It was chaos, really. Everyone was talking all at once. And then a single person's voice cut through the noise, silencing everyone. "Midoriya!" Todoroki Shoto stood before him, a hand in his pocket. His eyes looked as cold as ever, a quiet grimace on his lips. The boy looked as composed as anyone ever had. Izuku furrowed his eyebrows. Todoroki hadn't ever addressed him directly before. "What is it, Todoroki?" "Your quirk is odd and has many strange and powerful abilities. However, objectively, I believe I am still more powerful than you are, and have more control over my powers. Still, you've caught many people's eyes. I am not here to judge you for what happened inside the USJ, but..." The atmosphere chilled almost instantly. Todoroki Shoto's eyes glared deep into his own, meeting their match in the softly glowing Rinnegan. Their postures both tensed. And he proceeded. "In this sports festival, I am going to beat you." Izuku really couldn't catch a break, could he? Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.